There is a clipboard at the front desk of every hospital in America, and on it are 4 or 5 forms that almost everybody signs the same way. Fast, sideways, while somebody in the family is frightened. One word on those forms decides whether Medicare pays for rehab afterward. One line on them decides who the billing department calls when the insurance falls short. Nobody at that desk is going to point out either one. That is not their job. It is about to be yours. 5 mistakes that happen during admission and during the stay. None of them are treatment mistakes. All of them are paperwork. For each one, the exact question to ask and who to ask it of. Mistake number 5. You check that the hospital is in your network. You did not check the people inside it. The hospital is a building. The surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the radiologist reading the scan, the hospitalist managing the stay. Many of them bill separately as independent practices. Any one of them can be out of network inside a hospital that is perfectly in network. Since January of 2022, there is a federal law about this, the No Surprises Act, and it is stronger than most people realize. At an in-network facility, an out-of-network provider cannot balance bill you. For emergency care, that protection is absolute, and for a category the law calls ancillary services, anesthesiology, pathology, radiology, laboratory, neonatology, assistant surgeons. Absolute there too. A provider is never permitted to even ask you to give that one up. Here is where the money leaks. Outside those categories, for a scheduled non-emergency, an out-of-network provider is allowed to ask you to waive the protection in writing. That request has rules. It has to reach you at least 72 hours ahead, or 3 hours if it was booked the same day. It has to carry a good faith cost estimate. It can only be offered if an in-network provider is genuinely available and you are choosing the other one. And consenting has to be voluntary. So the pattern is short. If a form in the check-in stack asks you to consent to an out-of-network provider, that form is asking you to hand back a federal protection. Read it slowly. Ask whether an in-network provider is available instead. One quick thing. Senior Verdict does one job. We go through what things actually cost and where the money quietly leaks out. No sponsors, no product links, nobody paying for a kind word. If that is useful to you, subscribe. It is free, it takes a second, and it is the only thing that keeps this going. Now, mistake number 4. The one people are most afraid to push back on. Mistake number 4. Accepting a discharge date that does not feel safe because nobody knew that disagreeing was a formal option with a deadline attached. If you have Medicare, within 2 days of admission, the hospital hands over a notice called the Important Message from Medicare. Most people sign it and never look at it. It is not a formality. It is the document that says you have appeal rights, and they hand you a second copy again before you leave. Here is what it gives you. If the discharge seems too early, you or a family member can call the Quality Improvement Organization for your state. Medicare calls them BFCCQIOs. You ask for a fast appeal. The deadline is midnight on the day you are scheduled to leave. There is no form to fill in. A phone call is enough. And this is why it matters. If that call happens in time, you cannot be made to leave while the review runs, and you are not on the hook for those extra days beyond the deductible and co-insurance you would have owed anyway. The hospital has to send your records over and give you a detailed notice of discharge by noon the following day. The reviewer decides within 1 calendar day of having everything. The phone number is printed on the notice they already gave you. That is the entire reason the notice exists. And what you say to the care team is not a legal argument. It is one sentence. We do not think we are ready. What is the appeal path here? Mistake number 3. Assuming the pills in the little paper cup are the pills from home. Hospitals run a formulary, which is the list of drugs their pharmacy stocks. When something you take at home is not on that list, many hospitals have standing protocols that swap it for the equivalent they do carry. In the pharmacy world, this is called therapeutic interchange. It happens automatically, under a blanket authorization the prescriber signed when they joined the medical staff. Nobody is required to walk into the room and mention it. For most people, most of the time, this is routine and it is fine. Two places where it stops being invisible. A substitution is a change, and a change is something the patient is entitled to know about. And the research is blunt about the second one. Studies of hospitalized patients found that automatic interchange raises the risk of medication errors at discharge. The substitute goes home on the discharge list, sitting next to the original, and the person ends up taking both or neither. None of that is a conversation about diagnosis. It is bookkeeping. 3 habits. Bring a written list. Every medication, the dose and how often, not a shopping bag of bottles. 1 page. Ask, plainly, at some point during the stay, has anything on my home list been substituted while I have been here? And at discharge, hold the new list next to the old one and ask which of these replaces which. That question, asked out loud, is what catches the duplicate before it goes home in the bag. Mistake number 2, the signature at the bottom of the financial page and who it makes responsible. Somewhere in that stack is a form called something like financial responsibility, or assignment of benefits, or conditions of admission. It usually does 2 jobs at once. The first is assigning your insurance benefits to the hospital, so the insurer pays them directly instead of mailing a check to you. That part is routine, and you want it. The second job is naming a guarantor. The guarantor is the person the hospital comes to when the insurer denies the claim, pays only part of it, or the coverage runs out in the middle of a stay. If an adult child signs that line in their own name, that is the name in the billing system. Not the estate, not the insurance company, them. Standard hospital wording says the guarantor is fully responsible for the balance and that it stays in force until it is revoked in writing. 2 habits, and let me be careful how I put this, because these are questions and not legal instructions. If you are signing on behalf of a parent, it is fair to ask the registration clerk which line makes a person personally responsible, and whether you can sign as the patient's representative rather than as guarantor. Ask before the pen moves, not after. And second, ask which form is consent for treatment and which one is financial. They arrive together and people treat the whole stack as one decision. It is not one decision. You can consent to the care immediately and still slow down on the money page. And mistake number 1, the one that costs more than the other 4 put together. You can spend 4 nights in a hospital bed, in a gown, with a wristband and a chart and a nurse every 2 hours, and never once be an inpatient. If the hospital classified you as observation, you were an outpatient the entire time. Same bed, same care, different word. 3 things follow from that word. The first is billing. Observation is paid under Medicare Part B instead of Part A. A different deductible and generally 20% coinsurance on the services, with no cap over the top of it. The second is the drugs. Your own routine medications, handed to you in an observation bed, are what Medicare calls self-administered drugs, and Part B does not cover them there. The hospital bills you directly at hospital prices, and that charge does not count toward your Part B deductible either. The third is the expensive one. Medicare pays for skilled nursing rehab only after a qualifying stay of 3 consecutive inpatient days. The day you are admitted counts. The day you leave does not. Emergency room hours do not count. Observation hours do not count. So it is entirely possible to spend 4 nights in that hospital, go straight to rehab, and owe the whole nursing home bill because not one of those nights had the word inpatient attached to it. There is a notice. If observation runs longer than 24 hours, the hospital must give you the Medicare outpatient observation notice, which everybody calls the moon, within 36 hours. CMS replaced it with a clearer version this April. It is better than it was. It still does not spell out the rehab consequence. There is also an appeal now, and it is worth knowing how narrow it is. Since 2025, if you were admitted as an inpatient and the hospital then switched you to observation, that switch can be appealed. If you were on observation from the very first hour, that appeal does not reach you, which is why the question comes early and comes more than once. Out loud to whoever is standing in the room. Am I admitted as an inpatient or am I on observation today? It can change during a stay. Nobody is required to announce it. So, the senior verdict. 5 questions, 1 screen. Am I admitted as an inpatient or on observation today? Is every provider treating me in my network, and is any form asking me to consent to one who is not? Has anything on my home medication list been substituted while I have been here? Which line on this financial form makes a person personally responsible for the balance? And if the discharge comes too early, who do I call and by when? That is the order, and the order is deliberate. Status first, because status is the one with a 5-figure tail on it. Network second, medications third, the financial line fourth. Discharge readiness last, because it is the only one still fixable on the way out the door. None of this is about being difficult with the people taking care of you. Every question on that list is one a nurse or a case manager answers 10 times a week without blinking. The only thing that changes is whether somebody thought to ask. That is the senior verdict. Screenshot that list or send it to whoever in your family would be the one standing at that desk. It is far more useful in a pocket than in a bookmark. Next time we go one step further down the same road. What happens after the hospital when the rehab facility and the discharge planner arrive with a stack of forms of their own? Subscribe so you are not reading this for the first time in a waiting room. And in the comments, tell me which of the 5 hit your family. I read them, and the ones people keep bringing up are the ones that turn into episodes.